Ladies and gentlemen, let's get into the video. If you're interested in a new CPU, but maybe you're weighing up the pros and cons of Zen, then you may be interested in learning about Intel's Kaby Lake, because a leak has appeared, as it tends to do on the internet, this time by BenchLife. So, what does this leak tell us? Well, for one, it tells us that the Kaby Lake desktop processors, known as Kaby Lake-X, will be available in the fourth quarter of 2016, and this will be alongside the 200 series chipset based motherboards. Now, this new processor will of course still feature 14nm architecture, but we'll see the usual bumps in both performance and efficiency, which we're going to be studying in this very video. So you may remember that earlier this year there were engineering samples of the i7-7700K and also the i5-7500U, which appeared onto the internets. What they represent is the traditional 4-core hyper-threading scenarios that we've seen for some time. In other words, the 770K, the 6700K, very much business as usual. So, there's a couple of questions that we need to ask ourselves. The first question is, when will the damn things be available? Well, according to the BenchLife leaks, we're not going to start seeing qualification sampling until September, and mass production is going to hit November, with retail availability starting in December. But in reality, we probably won't see mass amounts of these processors start trickling into retail until January/February, just simply because of the Christmas period and all of the normal stuff that you can imagine. And of course, if they are limited quantity, then you can imagine the usual price gouging. What about Kaby Lake 200 series PCH, which is standing for Platform Control Hub? That's a nice acronym, isn't it? Well, qualification sampling is going to happen mid Q3, and mass production is going to happen October 2016. This once again assumes there's going to be no slippage. What does this mean for you and I? Well, essentially, it's going to be Intel Kaby Lake versus AMD Zen. Zen, by the way, is going to be using AM4, of course. What really this means is that if you haven't upgraded yet and you're considering, hey, I want a new processor, maybe you're best to wait, unless you really need one right now. Like, let's say you've got something really old and maybe you're upgrading to, like, I don't know, the GTX 1080 maybe. Then maybe you want to upgrade the second, or maybe your old motherboard and processor blew up. But if you can wait, it could well be worth it, and just sit on the fence and wait for the performance duking of AMD and Intel and see which is better for you. From a personal perspective, it would appear that we do have the usual 5 to 10% improvements, and of course the processors will feature, at least the enthusiast models, the usual crap, which one can imagine, 95 watt unlocked options, and we're also going to get base clock overclocking. But unfortunately, there are some issues with all of this. Because if you're actually looking for the overclocking option, then you're going to probably need to get Kaby Lake-X. So, from what we understand, and most of this is still leaks, this is going to be an unlock family, so you're going to be able to change things like the multiplier and once again base clock overclocking and all the other stuff that you would associate with, well, overclocking. Unfortunately, that's not going to be available until Q2 2017. Which puts us in a really interesting point of view. If you're looking just to buy a processor, which is Kaby Lake, and you're not fussed on overclocking, then by all means, have at it and get it at the end of the year. But if you've got a fairly well overclocked Skylake, let's say you've got a 6700K, 6600K, and you've clocked it to the moon, or even, to be honest with you, a 2600K really well overclocked, it may not be that worth it for you to just jump onto the bandwagon if you can't overclock. And really, that means you're going to have to wait for quite some time, which theoretically could well be a really good thing for AMD, because judging from what AMD have told us publicly, as well as some leaks, AMD are going to let you overclock Zen, which seems to be their basic philosophy, and it makes a lot of sense because essentially they're behind in the sales war. So let's just face it, they probably want to play catch up. Intel will be increasing the core count when it comes to Broadwell E, but once again, Broadwell E isn't the mainstream option, which is obviously Kaby Lake. It's going to be replacing Skylake. There are some benefits, however, to the Intel 200 series, and how they stack up finally to AM4 is really down to guesswork at the moment. Now, there are going to be a whole bunch of SKUs with the 200 series. They include the H270, the Q270, Q250, B250, and the Z270, which obviously there are some changes over the Skylake. Now, what this means is you're going to get support for Intel's Optane technology, which is, of course, the new X-Point memory, which I do need to do a full breakdown on that at some point. This means that we should see very high performance SSDs and memory solutions, which is going to be really good for folks who need to get a lot of data into the system really fast, for example, rendering, that type of stuff. And as one can imagine, we're going to see the usual things such as M2 solutions, and it's going to be quite a battle of platforms, I'm personally going to say. Now, I've got a lot of folks who are asking me what do I do in terms of upgrades, and I do want to quickly point this out in this video. I don't necessarily know if right now there's a right or wrong answer whether to upgrade or not. I could probably make an entire video on the theory of when to upgrade, to be honest. My personal point of view is this. I'm going to leave you with this and give your own thoughts and comments on this one in the bottom of the comment section. My personal standpoint when it comes to processors is if you can wait, so you've got a good processor, wait. Either go with Zen or go with Kaby. If you cannot wait, then really your only option is Skylake, unless you want to go with like a 5820K or something like that. But for most individuals, the motherboard costs and all of that probably don't work out to be that worth it, especially now we've seen finally the Skylake processors start going down in pricing, which is about bloody time. And arguably the 6600K is enough for most individuals. From a personal standpoint, I don't like the fact that we still have 4 cores, 8 threads as a standard thing for Intel processors. I think really that just needs to be left and put out to pasture. Because I think at this point for gaming, yes, it's okay, but will it be in late 2017? Especially with Scorpio and Neo and all of these new processors and APIs and God knows what else? Maybe, we don't know. But let's face it, more power is a good thing. So my personal feeling, and this is a feeling I don't know because obviously I've not seen performance numbers exactly, but one can imagine Kaby Lake is probably going to be faster than Zen single thread, but multi-threading, Zen's going to have the edge because there has more cores. So what does that mean for gaming? What does it mean for things such as 3D rendering? What does it mean for your wallet? Because ultimately you have to, well, damn well buy the things, and you're probably not made of infinite money. Well, that's down to the future, unfortunately. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this one. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.